You know, I've realized something. Both the left and the right in this country have been in a deadlock over the issue of immigration, and it's because people too far off to the fringes like Joy Reid and Ann Coulter have hijacked the debate on both ends. I think the clip you're about to watch from 2015 feels like putting on a new pair of glasses, especially in the context of how the illegal immigration crisis was worsened. Take a look at this because watching Bill Maher sandwiched between these two sides is entertaining to say the least.
You wrote a book about immigration.
Yes.
And you know we're gonna get to you very soon. Because I asked if you would mind if we booked the congressman with you, and you're okay with that.
I said fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay, you have an honest disagreement. So it's good publicity that Donald Trump was sort of saying what you were saying.
Yes.
Mexicans.
Yes.
But what I find odd is that you say in the book over and over that it's very hard to get facts, to get actual stats, and yet you come to conclusions like they're.
Well, I described that in the chapter. This wasn't going to be the original book. This was immigration was just going to be a couple of chapters, and then when the information wasn't there, it drove me crazy. For one thing, I go through how the information is being hidden, both by the government and by the media. But there are ancillary facts. For example, as you can see in that chapter, New York State keeps a list of prisoners by nationality, and there it is. You have 1,000 Dominicans, you have one Dane, and he's probably a Muslim. We have the most wanted list.
But we're not on the border with Denmark. There are less Danes here.
Well, but we don't.
And here's where someone like Ann Coulter loses me, and I think it's why even Donald Trump has basically sidelined her from a role in the administration both times he's formed a cabinet. While having a conversation on immigration numbers is reasonable, the only reason she'd imply that the criminal population is more Dominican than Dane, and a Muslim Dane, is that race and background have an explicit part to play in her view of how immigration should work. And that's a kind of baggage that no one needs, even from a tough-on immigration Republican side. By the way, subscribe and hit the notification bell because we are not afraid to call out people no matter what side they're on. And just for the record, there's another layer to Bill Maher's rebuttal, which is that the Dominican population in America is already concentrated in New York at around 39%. So even if there are more Dominicans in the state's prison system, who says it's not to imply a consequence of demographics rather than race or culture. And one of the reasons I think it's simply not helpful to speak in these terms is that it gives someone like the Democrats ammo to demolish even the reasonable limitations on immigration. You have to see Joy Reid's face in response when Ann said this.
Why wouldn't you look out across the world like a sports team does and try to get the creme de la creme? Not like this audience. We don't want these people. We want the creme de la creme. We want to up the average. Up the average.
You gotta give it to her. She ain't afraid. You gotta give her that.
But she's also wrong.
Okay. Now,
she's also wrong.
What's the rebuttal?
Look, 30 million, 12 million.
Big difference.
I would just say one thing. Worry about the 50 million Latinos in the United States of America that are here legally. Worry about that 50 million who care and who care deeply because of many of the people that you refer to as murderers and criminals and people that are on welfare are their aunts, their uncles, their classmates, they work with them. These are people they care about. So what I think that Ann Coulter is actually doing, along with Donald Trump, is that they're just revving up. You know, it's like a Latino registration machine.
See what I mean? That's why the left fails so massively even when the centrist ground has been left vacant by people on the far right. To say that you need to curb excessive illegal immigration is not mutually exclusive with caring for people who are already in the country. Two things just can't be true at once, and there's not even an overlap with what Democrat Representative Luis Gutierrez tries to imply here. And did he say the rhetoric of Donald Trump on immigration would be a Latino registration machine for the Democrats? That's a statement that couldn't have aged worse over the last 10 years, with Donald Trump consistently increasing his minority vote bank between Latino and African American voters in the last 3 elections. He's increased his appeal among the Hispanic voters up 14% as compared to 2020, and even that, to a large degree, ties into the immigration crisis because there's a large concentration of the Latino population across the southern border states. That should tell you that taking a tougher stance on illegal immigration has nothing to do with race. This truth is the line in the center that neither Ann Coulter nor Joy Reid seem to recognize, and it's not helpful to use race or background as a primary metric to decide who gets to come into the country, nor can you use allegations of racism to shut down the entire debate. Unfortunately, that's kind of what Joy Reid here tried to do, and I honestly saw it coming with the ammo that Ann Coulter had already given her.
Can I attempt to answer
Yes.
your question, Ms. Coulter? Because I think one of the things that we have to do in this country is to stop lying. We were earlier talking and touched on the issue of slavery. Ever since the forcible removal of millions of African Americans from chattel slavery, this country has been importing new slave labor.
That's right.
Because this country wants and runs and is fueled by cheap labor.
That's
whether it was Puerto Ricans, whether it was people we drew from Mexico to come here and continue to do so because the people who are on your side, big agriculture.
Not my side,
big
but I agree.
agriculture, the big corporate interests who want people to come.
Well, she does say that.
I agree with you.
Okay, well, once we bring people here, people's family members, people whose families are born here, are American. Both my parents are immigrants, so I take great exception to any kind of negative characterization of them. I had one come from Africa, my mother came from the Caribbean. When they came here, they came for the same reason that everyone does, for opportunity, for education. And when they're contributing to our society and they have a child here, like me, I'm a first-generation American, and I'm fully American, despite the fact that both my parents were born outside of this country.
Okay.
Yes, but who's even raising that point in the modern debate on immigration? It's a separate discussion altogether on whether birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants should exist, which, by the way, Trump has said he'd ban. But when today someone speaks about the illegal immigration crisis, they're speaking about the at least 11 million unauthorized people in the US currently, and how that number has radically increased in just the last 4 years. Ann Coulter, on her part, thinks that number is actually closer to 20 or 30 million, citing some studies from Yale. But the facts still hold even if you take the conservative estimate, and ironically, this is something that both the left and the right in the country should be able to unite on, with one of the fears the power and greed of big corporations, while the other wants to lower the illegal immigration that is inadvertently playing into the hands of those corporations as cheap labor.
Yeah, this is cheap labor, and particularly...
But then why isn't the book called Thugs?
Well...
How corporate Republicans are decimating the middle class.
Stupid.
It is so interesting to see Bill Maher go back and forth between Ann and Joy like this, and perhaps this is around the time when Bill Maher's more politically independent thought started to take shape. But in the last 10 years, you realize that while one political party under Donald Trump has largely rejected the kind of messaging that Ann Coulter is spreading, the Democrats have followed the mindset of Joy Reid all the way to the far left on the issue of immigration. But let me know in the comments what you thought about this debate from nearly a decade ago, because I think it says more about America's political evolution than anything else.